Al-Wara in Arabic language could be translated as devoutness or piousness or God-fearing. However, I like to translate it as self-restraint. If you look at the word restraint in English in the dictionary, it means sternness or severity of manner or attitude. It also means prevent from doing, exhibiting, or expressing something out of fear. And it means control over one's own impulses, emotions, or desires out of mastery. So, in that way, the self restraint has three levels, which leads to what we call piousness. In its lowest level is when people become harsh with themselves or stern and have a severity of manner or attitude. And you see that sometimes is a tendency in some religious extremists to have that severity of manner and sternness. And we all sometimes do it to ourselves when we want to be devoted or pious. So when we catch ourselves doing mistake or even suspecting that we're doing mistake, we scold ourselves in a harsh way, like how weak, how stupid, how messed up you are. So we speak in this kind of a stern and severe way. But as we progress in the path and refine our awareness and our character and purify our hearts, then we use self-restraint to prevent ourselves from doing or expressing something out of fear, but we try to do it out of love because I love goodness. I want to do things right. I love to please Allah. So when it is coming from that way, it becomes a little easier to do what you love rather than harshly scolding yourself for what is not right or what you perceive is not right. And as we continue to refine our awareness and our character, we gain mastery over the ego and over our impulses and emotions and lower desires. We gain mastery. We know how to manage it, find the root causes, heal it. And so we're not reactive, but we are actively dealing with self-awareness, right? So when we have that mastery over our ego, that is the highest level of self-restraint, or what we call Wara. So Allah says in the Quran 49, ayah 12, O you who believe, avoid most suspicion. Some suspicion is sinful. So when the word avoid comes in the Quran, this is how a lot of scholars of Islamic spirituality understand it to mean to restrain yourself from even approaching that behavior. Here in this particular ayah, suspicion is something to be avoided. And the Prophet ﷺ said about al-wara, or self-restraint, he explained it in his saying, one of the beautiful signs or characteristic of submitting to Allah is that the person will leave away or abandon that which is not his business. So that is self-restraint, because if you become an intruder, or if you impose your views or seek to control or compel people to do things, or intrude in their business, impose your advices and opinions upon them, that is lack of self-restraint. It is not wara, and it is not one of the beautiful characteristic of submitting to Allah's will. And that is narrated by at-Tirmidhi, and it is traced back to the Prophet ﷺ, that he said to Abu Huraira, "Oh, Abu Huraira, be pious or have wara, and you will be the most devout of people." Like, have self-restraint, and that's a sign of devotion to Allah. Al-Shibli, the great Sufi master, may Allah be pleased with him, said, Baizi, or wara, means refraining from everything other than Allah. And what does this mean? It means to refrain from being harsh, from being impolite, from being incompassionate, or restrain yourself from being a miser, or being offensive, and so forth. And that is the meaning of refraining from everything other than Allah. And Sufyan al-Thawri, another great Sufi teacher or Gnostic, said, I have not found anything easier than self-restraint, because it is concerning what is disturbing or troubling you inside, what is rubbing against you inside, ما حاك في نفسك, what is triggering your ego. So once you become aware of your triggers and you're troubled inside, then that's a sign that you need somehow to master the ego or to have a self-restraint. And Al-Hasan, the grandchild of the Prophet ﷺ, and the great teacher and mystic or Gnostic, may Allah be pleased with him, said, the atom weight of self-restraint is better than its equivalent, 1,000 times of its equivalent of prayers and fasting. What he's indicating here is that 1,000 prayers, 1,000 days of fasting, if it is not translated to even an atom weight of self-restraint, then it is invalid in a way. Your faith and the rituals are supposed to transform you inside and make you a better version of yourself. So it needs to be translated into actions. Piousness is reflected more in actions than more than in words or rituals. The rituals are for you to connect to Allah, but the transformation and the translating it into actions are a way to show that the transformation actually occurred. And that atom weight of self-restraint and the transformation, mastery over the ego, over the impulses, the triggers, and the lower desires, is better 1,000 times than doing the rituals without having that transformation. And so we need to differentiate between the first degree or level of piousness, which to do things out of fear and with a stern and harsh attitude, and the level that is preventing you from transgressing the limits set by Allah. Because there are multiple ayats in the Quran that say these are the limits set by Allah, so don't transgress it. Or in other ayah, like in Surah Al-Baqarah, ayah 187, it says these are the limits set by Allah, so don't approach it, which means avoid it. So here these ayat are understood to ask us to have self-restraint or wara, which again means we can do it out of fear or of consequences and punishment, or we can do it out of love for the goodness in itself, or we can do it because we aligned ourselves with its nature, with our nature as a spirit from Allah, and so it helps us to master our ego and our illusions and be more in alignment with Allah. And that is the true meaning of piousness and devotion.